Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case, and welcome if you're currently here in the live chat. I appreciate it. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you the latest updates on the Dylan Rounds case and what Candice Cooley has had to say in recent time on Facebook. As well, there are some court documents I'm going to share with you for the first time ever on my channel. Thought I'd get that keyword in. And as we go along, you can share your thoughts, opinions, add on additional information if you wish to, and also talk about other things in general. So let's begin and take a look at the documents of Brenner. So here we are on the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page, and scrolling down, 11 hours ago, there was a post by Candice Cooley saying, "Thank you, Cynthia," provided a link to a channel. It reads, "This is the original charge against Brenner from the BECSO that led to the arrest warrant that they negligently chose to ignore from day one on our search for Dylan. I believe the paperwork speaks for itself." Now, quick backstory behind Cynthia. Cynthia Rwanda, or is it, I think I said that wrong, that's the name of a country, shit. But Cynthia is on YouTube, and she has covered the Dylan Rounds case here and there and done some key videos. So yeah, you can check her out if you wish to. And she has watched a couple of mine as well, so that's all good. As for the charges and the documents down below, these are the ones in question being talked about. Now, I will zoom on in. I'll transition over so you can read it easier. So here is the first page. I don't know if you want everything reading out. At the top left, it says Stephen R. Hadfield, Box Elder County Attorney, Brian P. Duncan, Deputy County Attorney, and then like the address and stuff. And then below it, it's titled, "In the First Judicial District Court, Box Elder County, State of Utah." On the left, the State of Utah versus James A. Brenner. And then it gives like an address down below. Status out of custody. Now, I assume that's to do with when he was arrested and then he was released suddenly. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then on the right hand side, information, court case, judge, summons requested with conditions. We scroll down a bit. It says, "The undersigned as prosecuting attorney states on information and belief that the above named defendant in Box Elder County, State of Utah, committed the following crime. Count 1, aggravated assault, 3rd degree felony in violation of Utah Code. As follows, that on or about February 20th, 2021, the defendant did attempt with unlawful force or violence to bodily injury to another, make a threat accompanied by a show of immediate force or violence to do bodily injury to another, or commit an act with unlawful force or violence that causes bodily injury to another or creates a substantial risk of bodily injury to another, and said conduct included the use of a dangerous weapon as defined in section 76(1)(601), or any act that impedes the breathing or the circulation of blood of another person by the defendant, use of unlawful force or violence that is likely to produce a loss of consciousness by applying pressure to the neck." Okay, so it looks like Brenner is into choking people. So after reading all of that, I'm not sure if this is directly in association with the 70-year-old being attacked in Montello or not. Or maybe it's other stuff in between, because it doesn't really mention the age or name of the victim or victims. But this like document, if you want to call it that, I've not shown before. You know, there was another one kind of similar, but I think that was more to do with past crimes and, you know, a long list of them. this is being described as one of the first documents within the whole Dylan Rounds case, and as what Candy said, what he should have been taken in for. Now, really, it's the gun charge part, right? The violence, the bodily injury is in 2021. So, is it just simply referring back to previous arrest, or is this all piled on top till he's finally been arrested with all the other crimes he's committed in the past? That's what we've got to try and understand, because in recent time, although this document says what it says, in recent time, Candice has said really the only reason why Brenner is charged and has been arrested, well, taken in, let's say, is just because of that .22 caliber rifle, and everything else doesn't really mean much. That's like how it was worded then, in recent time. So it does make you think. But, you know, the one thing that is interesting, I know it says about the immediate force, you know, the physicalness behind it and what Brenner is capable of, but, and yeah, the dangerous weapon too. But the bit about where it says impedes the breathing or circulation of blood of another person by the defendant's use of unlawful force or violence, leading to loss of consciousness. So, who was Brenner going after then? Like, was it still the 70-year-old, or is that just a different situation? You can leave your thoughts down below and let me know what you think. So, aside from, you know, the typical shooting here and there, and you know, being physical and maybe using objects, he's also using his hands, and it's trying to figure out who could he have strangled, you know, back then. And then it opens up the possibilities of other forms of taking Dylan Rounds out. I mean, supposedly if there's a lack of blood at the scene of the crime, you could say, well, how's that possible? You know, if he's been shot, there should be a blood trace, a blood splatter. If he was hit over the head with a blunt instrument or sharp object, there should be blood. But if it was down to strangulation, garroted, or just strangled with bare hands, no blood will show, most likely. It just won't show. You know, you're cutting off their circulation, you're cutting off their breath, and then eventually no oxygen to the brain, and then, you know, you just die like that. So could Brenner have used his hands? Because, you know, you look at him, he's a fair size. I don't know how big his hands are. I don't know what his grip strength is like, but it does make you wonder, could he have used, you know, that method to take Dylan out, and that's why there wasn't much blood present. Just a thought. You can let me know what you think down below. So let's move on to the next one, if I can. Here we go. Right, so it briefly continues over from the first page, saying, or throat of a person, or obstructing the nose, the mouth, or airway of a person, or other means or likely force to produce death or serious bodily injury. This information is based on evidence obtained from Deputy Mason Chad Everett. Interesting name. Dated this first day of April 2021. Brian P. Duncan, Deputy County Attorney. Okay. There's given the situations. I guess sometimes when it comes to the court cases and the certain crimes and types and sections it falls under, I guess they do like you call it an umbrella term. Like, it's to do with violence. It could be this or that under that condition and so on. So instead of being too specific with each one broken down, it would be too messy maybe and time consuming. So let's continue reading. It says factual basis, probable cause statement. Okay. Defendant attacked the elderly victim and beat him up. The defendant punched him in the face and knocked him down. The defendant then kicked the victim multiple times in the face, head, and ribs. The defendant then stated beating the victim with a metal folding chair. Okay. So basically, this court document, if you want to call it that, is referring to that 70-year-old, the one who I talked about in a past video of mine when we were looking at kind of like a summary of different crimes of Brenner when they had that first court hearing back then, if you can remember that. And that's the one where Candice did that little interview outside of the court at the time. Not much has happened since, but then again, something like that might happen again in October when there's that court case with Brenner. So we'll see how things play out there. But yeah, this is still all about that 70-year-old, so I assume 2021. So does this mean he wasn't arrested in 2021? I mean, dated. I mean, if this court document is to do way back in 2021, then why is it valid now? How does it link to the Dylan Rounds case? Or, and this is the other idea I've got, which you can let me know your thoughts, is this a pending arrest, like a pending crime which Brenner got away with up until the arrest warrant on Brenner's trailer, in which being a felon owning guns, and then the past history caught up on him and it's been included in his document. That's the way of looking at it, because I said the way Candice said was this was the original at the beginning of when Dylan should have been this was the original and when Brenner should have been arrested in the Dylan Rounds case because of this document. But if this is like all to do with 2021, then why does it have anything to do with present time now, unless it's pending? It's the only way I can think of it. When it comes to court cases and all that stuff and law, I'm not going to know because I don't look at it, nor do I study it. But some of you may, so you will know. So feel free to leave your thoughts if you need to correct anything or add to the points I made. But yeah, I mean, this does give more in-depth information specifically to do with that assault in 2021, in which wasn't mentioned in the previous documents I shared with you. So, in terms of the methods, beating him up, could that be applied to Dylan, So what came first? Well, it looks like punched in the face, he was knocked down, okay, then constantly kicked down on the ground to keep him down and to incapacitate, is that the correct word? And then using a metal folding chair like it's WWE. So, does make you think, could that have been the sort of methods used if confronting Dylan, possibly? Do a cheap shot, knock Dylan to the ground. Dylan's tired from doing the seeding on the 27th. He's fatigued, he can't get back up. His arms are weak, shoulders are, possibly, his back. And then Brenner repeatedly kicks him, possibly. Don't mean to say blood will be drawn. Not quite, not exactly. And then whatever happens after that, possibly. I mean, what you've also got to take in mind is Brenner is of a fair age, 58, 59 years of age. The victim here in 2021 was 70 years old. So that 70-year-old was kind of vulnerable physically, so they couldn't really fight back. They might have had health conditions, they might have been a little bit unstable physically, so Brenner could have easily overpowered him. But what about Brenner on Dylan? How would Brenner manage then? Because Dylan is younger, I guess healthier and more mobile. So was it a cheap shot? Was it an ambush? Throw Dylan off guard? That sort of methods. Just worth taking into mind. You can let me know what you think down below. Anyway, let's continue reading. Apologies. It says, is that about it? It says, request for conditions release. Pursuant to Utah Code, and the state is requesting the below conditions for defendant's continued release. These conditions are necessary to ensure the defendant's compliance with Utah. Bullet points: not commit a federal, state, or local offense during the period of release. Avoid contact with a victim or victims of the alleged offense. Avoid contact with a witness or witnesses who may testify concerning the alleged offense. they are named in the pre-trial status order, and forfeit or refrain from possession of a firearm or dangerous weapons. So that court document is interesting as it gives an in-depth look at the methods used and the extent of damage caused upon that person in 2021. Now, as for the second page where it was talking about like conditions of release, if this is referring back to 2021 when Brenner may have been arrested, could this all tie in with Jim Brenner's trailer in Montello? As said, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'll just briefly talk for it from how I perceive it, okay? So, 2019 at least, Brenner in Montello, out and about and stuff. From the looks of it, his trailer is out there in decent condition, along with his car, supposedly, in 2019, Montello, nearer to the mountainous area and the border between Nevada and Utah. So, okay, now 2021, when this crime happened, let's say he's been arrested, then released. I mean, he is away from the town of Montello, so there is a distance. He's not getting too close to the victims, the family of whoever. He's keeping his distance. His firearms, from the way he worded it with Don in like 2022, saying, can you hold these firearms for me, the black powder ones, because, you know, from past experience, they were taken off me by the police, can't allow that to happen again. So was he talking to Don and referring to back in 2021 when that happened, which you saw in that court document, how things were taken from him, how he was restricted to doing certain things and where he could go and visit? Maybe. If it's still to do with 2022, the arrest, then it's like, because this thing, Candice may have worded it wrongly or a bit differently to how some people would word it, so that could lead to misinterpretation. But as I said, you can clear up along the way. So yeah, okay, that's kind of interesting. I do remember there was kind of another recent document which was passed on by Julie, and it was to do with like the health and safety document or the health and safety assessment of Brenner himself, I guess ranking his dangerousness, his risk of reoffending, causing another crime, of violence, yes or no. I think it was like a colour-coded system as well. And was there a PS4, a PSL4 or something? I can't remember. It was like a certain condition or number which was under to do with conditions of being released. Can't do this, can't do that. Got to have a tag on or monitored by another human when he's out. Maybe has a curfew. Something to do with meetings and stuff. I can't quite remember it, and I'll provide a link down below so you can check yourself, but I guess it was just like a health one to assess what's the likely chances of Brenner committing another crime. Is he still a threat to the general public at this age, at this time, yes or no? Has anything else happened in between? And despite all that, can he be released? And if so, what are the conditions and what are the limitations? All that sort of stuff, okay? And if that was to do with that health and safety report, and that was to do with the arrest in recent time, with the gun charges specifically, then this document, what we're seeing today, which is an old one, must be to do with 2021. I know it's dated 2021, but sometimes when you get crimes which have occurred back in the past and have not been arrested yet, and they're on the run or they're just laying low, and then they get caught, you know, those past crimes are referred to that date because that's when it's happened. Okay, so it's like with the Kenny Veach situation where you see his hike video in 2014 and you just assume, oh, it happened in 2014. But who's to say it did? It was uploaded in 2014, but when it was actually recorded, when it actually went down, it could have been a year beforehand. It could have been many months before. You don't know. So that's what I'm trying to refer back to, okay? Now, aside from that, Candice did give a few more posts on Facebook, and I think it was kind of in relation to that court document and Brenner himself. So let me share that with you from Facebook, read it, and we'll analyse it now. So on the same day, Candice did also share another link from 11 hours ago, and Candice said, we have released so much that has proven BECSO negligence, ignorance, and dismissal of Dylan Rounds. These have all been their own court documents and they speak for themselves. Justin Rounds and I will never back off. BECSO created this and refused to own up to their mistakes and turn it over. They will never redeem our confidence, not that they ever had it. Please help us bring Dylan home with your voices. Call, text, email, or mail these agencies and help us to be Dylan's voice. Well, let's just remember that because of YouTubers and the platform YouTube, some of them have provided Candice a voice to speak on when covering the case, clarifying any misinformation or confusion, okay, spreading the word. So that needs to be acknowledged too. Then it says, contact Utah Attorney General and Utah Governor to request Dylan's case to be sent to the state of Utah for prosecution. Utah Attorney General's office. There's a lot of Utahs going on. And yeah, okay, so it's just about spreading the word, getting around and stuff, okay. Okay, and what is being said here? I'll be sending out more emails and we'll be letting them know about Dylan, it's known for. Okay. Did Brennan know about Dylan's run-in with Chase before Dylan's boots were found? I don't think we can check the replies to that because, not having an account with Facebook, it ends up kicking you off and stuff and spazzes out. But yeah, let me know your thoughts about that with what Candice has said. Which says, we have released so much. I'm sure that's true, but most of what I've seen, at least up to now, with the interviews, by the East Idaho News Channel, and maybe some of us here and there, as well as on Doug's channel, even though it's a bit dodgy there, it's all been her talking, okay? So correct me if I'm wrong, but while she's saying we've released so much, what have you released? Okay, you might have the odd document here and there of certain crimes and stuff going on, but is there audio recordings of conversations? You provided a photo of Sheriff Potter and the wife talking to Candy, so 2-on-1, but that's just open to interpretation how she worded it. Let me know your thoughts on that. Most of the other stuff she was just recalling from what she's experienced, and that most likely is the case and is the truth, but what about the actual evidence, the concrete stuff, pieces of paper, evidence, video recordings, audio recordings, all that of the police incompetence? Is video footage of someone recording the police walking about and just throwing bits of evidence into the truck so it highlights and demonstrates recklessness and lack of care? Is there an audio recording of a conversation between Candice and one of the deputies, and the deputy saying, well, it's not of our interest here, or, well, it's not really for us to decide, good luck, you go and check yourself, that sort of stuff. Is there anything of that? I haven't come across it personally, so that's why I'm kind of thinking, well, what about all that proof? Where is that proof aside from what one has spoken of? Let me know your thoughts about that, because maybe you know better, or you have seen actual evidence provided by Candice. This thing you've got to also understand, there might be the odd post on Facebook which might have an attachment, but if it's down to a different country, I'm not going to be able to access it or look at it myself. If there is an additional post which has a padlock on, which is only shared with people of members of the page, then one can't look at it. So they're the only other conditions and restrictions I wanted to list before people start whinging and whining and getting all whingy-whiny and all that stuff, right? So aside from that, there was another post further on up, and it's this one here, I believe. Yeah, okay. So this one says uploaded a file, but it can't be accessed because it's got a padlock on. But I will read out the caption of it all by Candice Cooley. 17 hours ago. Where's the see more button? There we go. And this is in bold. So it must be fairly important to get people's attention. So Candice says, I am sure that many of you have heard me say in interviews that James Brenner had an active warrant the day we began looking for Dylan. This was not on a simple misdemeanor. This was a felony aggravated assault charge. Right, okay, so aggravated assault, that sounds like what we read out in the documents with that 70-year-old attacking them. If that's the case, then that's ongoing from 2021, so I assume Brenner wasn't arrested back then, I assume. And it was only when the Dylan Rounds case and Brenner got involved there and seen as a suspect, and then the past caught up on him, if I'm correct in saying, because that's how it seems like the way Candice is wording it. So what's the whole thing about? 1 minute they're saying about these are the original charges because of aggravated assault on somebody, but then next minute you're saying, oh, it's only charges of gun crime, of being a felon, and now next minute Candice is saying in the latest one on Doug's interview channel, saying, oh, no, it's not about gun charges, literally, it's not about the Dylan Rounds case, it's just about owning a .22 caliber rifle and the crime behind that. So it's like, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Do you see what I'm saying? Language itself can cause confusion. So with stats and facts as well in between of information, that can just make it even more cluttered. So let's just continue reading. It says, thanks to Marcos Ortiz, ABC4. Marcos Ortiz is the guy with that dodgy moustache. You know, the very short, the questionable one, the one above his lip and near his nose. It's like, well, it kind of like reminds me of someone else. But yeah, thanks to Mark Ortiz, ABC4, we have the documents. The reason I knew this was active was a deputy told me. I found it strange they did not arrest at this point, but dismissed it because we were still in a panic just looking for Dylan. So, once again, it just shows the police incompetence, and it does make you think. This is past behaviour, okay, past crime, and yet the police are just like, oh well, no urgency. Yeah, he's dangerous, you know, he's hurt people, but oh well, never mind. I mean, he's also seems to be associated with the Dylan Rounds case, and you know, certain acts of violence can cross over to Dylan himself, but you know, there's no urgency. That's what it seems to be. So, you know, yeah, I think we'll have to have a discussion shortly. I'm going to show my face shortly because I'm picking up on certain things as we go along. So yeah, dismissed it because we're still in panic, fair enough. I mean, that panic could equal to why Candice Cooley at the time on the 30th broke entry to that Ford F-150 Raptor, because she was in a rush, heat of the moment, not thinking straight, possibly. That could explain that. We can leave your thoughts down below. Additionally, it says, Brenner should have been arrested and held from day one and the property searched from top to bottom. BECSO knew his violent criminal history, knew there was a warrant, has a missing 19-year-old whose boots were found right by where Brenner lives, yet they do nothing. So just from reading that portion of the Facebook post by what Candice Cooley has had to say, it is interesting, and once again it's just highlighting the incompetence and suspicion of Box Elder County Sheriff's Office of how they've handled things. You know, you can leave your thoughts down below and how they've appeared. You know, do you think they're dodgy, suspicious, they're hiding something, you know, all that type of stuff. I mean, I'm going to put forward one point, okay, so hopefully you're listening. It's kind of an unpopular or negative opinion, okay? But from the way it's been worded and how Candice has said it, if Jim Brenner with his crimes in 2021, a year before Dylan went missing, if Brenner was supposed to be arrested back then, but Box Elder County failed to do so, and have only just decided to do it now, playing catch-up, does that mean that Box Elder County are responsible technically for Dylan's death, potential death, disappearance? From the looks of it, if that's the case, then if Brenner was arrested a year ago, then Dylan could still be alive now. Just let that sink in, if it's under those conditions. That sounds a little bit deep in a way, doesn't it? Now, obviously, you always blame the suspect for, the outcome of a person going missing, getting hurt, because the suspect is the one responsible for that all happening in the first place. But you can also blame Box Elder County as well, because they should play a role in keeping the bad people off the street. In that sense, that way of wording, they should be locked up. So if Brenner was arrested earlier and was in prison for a year or two, then Dylan would have survived and would have been alive, wouldn't he? So that is kind of dodgy. Now, if Dylan still disappeared though, and I know we can't see it out now because you just can't, but if it still happened, then obviously it shows that there is another suspect, there is another person out for Dylan. But we can't go back in time to, monitor or analyse that. But that's kind of weird. I mean, if Brenner was arrested and then released at a later date, could he have then took Dylan out a year on, months on maybe, and it still would have been inevitable? I don't know. If it's a short fuse, a disagreement on the spot, and it's not planned supposedly because of Brenner's behaviour, then maybe it could have happened at any point, any time. But if Brenner was arrested, in jail for a fair bit of time, and maybe even ordered to leave Lucin or keep distance from Dylan, even though nothing happened back then, maybe things would have turned out different. I mean, I don't know when Brenner directly started working with Dylan. The dates seem to be all over the place, but it just makes you think when certain things have changed in the timeline, the past, obviously the future can change itself. So it does make you think what type of outcome would have happened if Box Elder County acted on it. And this is the other thing you've got to take into mind. Simply the observation that if Box Elder County are aware of Brenner, his past, what he's done, and being violent, dangerous, causing trouble, and yet they're like, oh well, we're not going to arrest you, we'll let you take out Dylan, you can kill him off, and then we might come round to arresting you now. It's as if Box Elder County are in on it as well. And the way it's all been worded by Candice, it's kind of going backwards in a sense, because Candice was criticising the LE from the beginning. Then she reached out to YouTubers and public people. Then she stepped back from that and then re-supported the LE because they were supposedly investigating and making developments. And then with time, there was a bit of a blank part. Then she reached out, I think, in August, criticising the LE more than ever. And then in more recent time, continued that, criticising the LE. But then in very recent time, a few days ago, on the live stream of Doug, Candice responded saying, no, the LE aren't corrupt whatsoever. I strongly disagree. So you think it's normal Box Elder County not arresting Brenner when they could have way back then, when it was obvious that they should have done and would have done, and they did with the likes of Jamie Prince, if that's his name, and Dion, the fucking 19-year-old, whoever that person, that knob, and then other people in between. So, as I said to you, you can look back at my videos as well. I can't remember all the bloody names, but there have been other people in recent time, like 1st, 2nd of September, who've been arrested because they've killed someone, hurt someone violently, and they've been arrested just like that. So why wasn't Brenner then, when he did almost the same exact thing? it makes you think. It's like when I was saying about the whole situation between like certain individuals, characters in the Dylan Rounds case will criticize certain YouTubers whilst defending other YouTubers who are just as bad, but the only reason why they're defending them is because they've been given a platform to speak on behalf of or something. So it's like with the police. The police will arrest some people for certain crimes, but then other people they won't arrest even though they've done the same exact crime. So it shows a bit of favoritism, maybe a bit of biasness going on. And if that's the case, then there must be some kind of corruptness. You know, if you are a part of the police or some kind of authority, then you should act the same how you would with all the other people. I'm not going to get down the line of all the other bandwagons and stuff going on. No, we're not going there. But you know what I'm saying, you know? So, from my opinion, I'd probably say that because they know what Brenner was like, but they didn't act on it, then they must be working with him. Or are they scared of him and they didn't want to arrest him? I can't imagine. So it must be that they were working with him, assisting him in some way, or they were looking out for Brenner, or Brenner was looking out for the police, some kind of negotiations and deals going on in the background. It must be, because the only reason why you wouldn't arrest somebody or drop somebody in is because you're either loyal to them or you're kind of scared of them, so you can't do anything, or, you know, that sort of stuff. You've got some like ongoing deal, whether you like the person or not. So very dodgy there. Let's continue reading that Facebook post. Right, so there's a few bullet points down below. It states the warrant was originally issued April 23rd, 2021. Then below it, Box Elder County Sheriff's Office was not acting on any warrants due to the virus until March 21st, 2022, unless they were felonies, which this was. Okay, so that kind of explains the delay there in a way, but still, actions could have been taken. Then it says, May 30th, when we arrived to Box Elder County Sheriff Office, directly spoke with Brenner multiple times. May 30th, multiple times. But how did Brenner respond, though? You know, was he cooperative, or was he awkward, argumentative, or calm? It would have been interesting to know what his body language and behaviour was at the time. You know, if he was very defensive from the beginning, it's like he might be hiding something, you know. What else is there? May 31st, S&R and Box Elder County Sheriff's Office moves base so they do not irritate Brenner. This is absurd. They did not want to irritate the man with felony warrant. That was more important than finding Dylan. Infuriating. So the way it was worded there was basically the Box Elder County in the search and rescue, that they were more concerned about how Brenner felt. They wanted him to feel safe, secure, and relaxed. They didn't want to intrude on his property, his place of living. They wanted him to be calm and happy. That's the way you could interpret it. So the likes of Box Elder County Sheriff's Department, that Box Elder County should be arresting Brenner, but instead they're like, oh, should we leave you alone? Do you feel a little bit scared and intimidated by our presence? Don't worry, we'll step back, we'll walk away. We're supposed to arrest you. We've got our handcuffs ready to put on your wrist, but you know what? You've been a good boy. We don't want to hurt you or your feelings, so we'll just step away. We'll be submissive. We'll bend over backwards for you, and then you can be at ease. Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. So it's almost like what? They're scared of Brenner, they're obeying Brenner, they've got some kind of agreement going on. You know, why they're acting so submissive when they're the authority? What is going on? That is so dodgy. Let's carry on reading. Then it says, when Brenner was finally arrested on June 11th, 2022, he was immediately released, as the warrant said. Okay. So, yeah, I did hear about that when he was being released. All of a sudden, it's like, what? You're releasing a dangerous man back out into the world. He could end up hurting somebody else in between. It was that concept. So the fact that they released him is as if they didn't want him in jail. They didn't want him to go down. They wanted him to be free. Is that because they like Brenner, Box Elder County or something? Or they're too scared? I don't know. You can leave your thoughts down below. I mean, he was rearrested, I think, was it June 16th or something? So it's like, why the back and forth? So it's not just like information, timelines, dates of Dylan, but also suspects, and now also like the whole arrest and rearresting, then should have been arrested but wasn't, but now is, and then released, and then now what's going on? Anything else? It said, had Box Elder County Sheriff's Office went to the judge and requested him be held on no bail. I have no doubt with the sources I have helping me, he would have stayed there. Okay. Right. So basically, if Box Elder County put their foot down and said, hey, we've got to do this, you can't have him on no bail or something. So they could have done. That's what Candice is saying. Candice is saying from the looks of it, Box Elder County could have ensured that Brenner was not released. But they didn't try. They just didn't. So then it meant Brenner could walk out free like that. So yeah, it's definitely highlighting Box Elder County once again for their lack of competence and action direct. That's lacking, and it does make you think, are they trying to cover for Brenner? Make it as easy for him, reduce sentencing, reduce imprisonment time, and all that, and held in custody too. It's not looking that good. And yet Candy still believes that Ellie are just simply making mistakes. Oh my god. Let's carry on reading. I have attached the documentation for you to read over and decide for yourself. We feel this was negligent, ignorant, and disrespectful towards the family and Dylan himself. It would not have changed what happened in the previous couple of days, but we as a family truly believe it gave Brenner time to hide and dispose of whatever he wanted that could have been evidence. So, you never know. I mean, this is the other thing you got to take in mind. Okay. So what, June 11th released or something. So he's gone back out, back to his place of living, providing his trailer is still there. Moves Dylan, moves the gun, dumps it somewhere, the wallet, the phone into a pond of something like that. Tie up any loose ends just to make sure. But I'm just trying to understand, what time did Box Elder County go back to the grain shed and area around that and start digging the land and checking through the trailers and then taking Brenner's trailer into the labs for testing? Did that happen before Brenner was arrested originally or after? Because if it didn't happen originally because Brenner was staying at the trailer and they moved away from Brenner with the search and rescue because they didn't want to annoy him, and then he was arrested temporarily and then released, he got back to his trailer, he started moving things about, hiding stuff, and then he was arrested again, which then led to the police returning back, I guess, and doing like a search warrant. Not search warrant, just exploring, the farm. And like when Candy said back then on the East Isle News Channel that they found some new stuff. Now, I think that might have been the key fob at the time, possibly, and maybe some other additional evidence too. So if that's like how it fits the timeline, then yeah, it seems to make sense with what Candice is saying about the whole timing and what could have been done in between to hide things. So yeah, that's not looking good. And once again, it's like reinforcing that point once again, allowing Brenner to clean himself up in between, Box Elder County allowing him. So you can say maybe Box Elder County aren't always directly aiding with Brenner, assisting him, but they're giving Brenner the opportunity to help himself, clear up any loose ends, any potential mistakes, mishaps, evidence left behind. That's one way of looking at it, I guess. And then it reads on, and then Candice also says, in brackets, he cleaned the shed out June the 2nd, saying it was spring cleaning. L.E. seen this happening. So they saw it happening. What? We'll have to get back to that shortly. We now have the help we wanted thanks to all of you standing up and rallying around Dylan, but BECSO still remains lead. We in no way, if and when charges are filed, want BECSO to be lead and prosecute the suspect. Definitely not. Please keep calling into the AG office and Governor's office and tell them BECSO was not even competent enough to arrest a violent felon they were standing in front of, yet they want to maintain lead to be able to prosecute and to redeem themselves in Dylan's case. You go a bit down below and it says this content isn't available at the moment. When this happens, it usually because the owner only shared it with a small group of people or changed it to who can see it or it's been deleted. Now, this is probably like a members only thing. So if you're part of the group, you're on Facebook, you can check it out yourself. For whatever reason, if you wanted me to give my opinion on whatever is within that, whether it be documents, pictures, and you want me to analyse it, break it down, give my thoughts, if you're into that, if you have access to that content on screen, feel free to share it as a screenshot maybe, if you wish to, and then we'll see what happens there, okay? Is there anything else down below? Just basically saying that this is just so sad. What is wrong with our justice system? God bless the family. Prayers to them. Okay, let's return back to me because I've got some things to say. Right, so I'm just going to share my thoughts and opinions, okay? So after looking back at all that, there seems to be a lot of points which suggest that Box Elder County Sheriff's Office like Jim Brenner in some way and want him to be a free man as much as possible. You know, okay, Brenner's done bad stuff in the past, Box Elder County knows, but they didn't make an attempt to arrest him, but only did a year later when it was tied with the Dylan Brown's case. So they eventually caught up with that, but dragged it out long enough to ensure that Brenner is a free man. Then when Brenner has been taken in, only for a short spell and then released again, and Box Elder County could have made sure that he remained imprisoned or in custody, but they didn't make that effort. It's as if they wanted him to be a free man once again. In between, like I said, on June the 2nd, from what Candice said, the law enforcement are present on the farm at the grain shed and literally see Brenner walking into the grain shed and clearing it out, taking objects out, maybe Dylan's body, maybe a weapon, a gun, a wallet, a boot, a shoe, a hat, a jacket, whatever. Taking it all out, maybe putting it into his trailer or into his car and then driving off and then dumping it somewhere in a mine shaft, in a pond, and yet the LE are just stood there with the arms crossed. Just a visual interpretation, okay, from what Candice has said. That's not normal whatsoever. Every method taken to ensure to drag the case out, drag certain evidence, maybe spoil certain evidence so then it doesn't apply to Brenner as much, allowing Brenner time to breathe and clear himself up, Box Elder County not rushing anything. It seems very, very, very corrupt, and yet Candice still can't admit that or see it from that point of view at least. That's what I can't understand, because it just seems to be too much outweighing. Because look, the way some people have worded it with time, it's like, hey, Box Elder County make mistakes from time to time, you know, we all do it, you know, none of us are perfect, you know, if we're perfect, the world would not be a good place, it would be so boring, you know, we gotta have some mishaps, man, you know, well, when it comes to Box Elder County, they're trying their best, you know, they're trying everything they can, you know, they're trying as hard as possible, but, you know, sometimes it gets too much and we can't, we struggle, we have our struggles, man, and it's like, what are you on about? It clearly shows incompetence and dodginess behind it, surely. You can leave your thoughts down below. Why did I sound like Mike Tyson then? Well, it sounded like it in my head. Maybe a new impression. But Yeah, it just seems it just seems a bit wonky and a bit all over the place, to be fair. There wasn't really much else to share, but I think that in itself is enough to just like really reinforce things. And as I say, linking back to that idea that if Brenner was arrested earlier, then maybe Dylan would still be alive today, and that's the dark thought and maybe possible dark reality. And also, let's do some brief predictions. If they're, what did it say, the prosecutor or something, or they're like heavily involved, Box Elder County, in the court case, let's just say, I don't know how things work over there, but let's say Box Elder County are involved in the court case in October, where it's to still do directly with Dylan Rounds or the gun charges, whenever, whatever. Do you think if Box Elder County were involved in the court case, would they do everything possible to try and get Brenner off the hook? Try and disrupt the court, cause trouble, act dumb, act stupid, maybe to do a good job already, drag things out as much as possible, delay things, try and push the court case back more, delay it more. Do you think they'll do everything possible to try and either get Brenner off the hook or reduce his sentence? It's like the under Brenner's spell. It's a bit weird. I mean, whilst you've got the dodgy Ellie, you've got that what is it, Brenner's Brookie, or Brookie's Brenner, that recent user that showed up, who seems to have a big obsession with Jim Brenner's beans, more than one. So who knows? With that Brookie around, this penguin is not safe. Even he's terrified. He doesn't want to be taken or kidnapped by Brookie, the dodgy account that recently showed up, and nor this person. That's innocence right there. You look at those faces. These do not want to be in the presence of someone like Jim Brenner or any dodgy people around, that they just prefer to be away from it. And I think like some people are like that as well when it comes to some of the drama within the mystery. But for most part of it up to now, this like live premieres are under control, not too out of control. So you should be safe here. So that's all I can say. Just give my brief thoughts and opinions on this stuff. You can leave your thoughts down below if you have additional points, opinions, if you want to clear anything up or have questions, feel free to do so. That's it for now. Hope you enjoyed the video. We will see what happens next, and yeah, good night.